Happy Tuesday, crafters. Here's another Try It Tuesday, and I am hooked on Kitsch Flamingo. I've been working with that for a couple of weeks, well, ever since the color came out. I'm just really enjoying that color of pink. And then I wanted to play with flamingos because, you know, it just led me down that path. And flamingos, like, who doesn't like a pink bird? So fun. And I also pulled out, because I have a flamingo stencil here, some of these new stencil butters, which are really nice and creamy. I've used them in other colors, but I'm going to use this bright pink one today. So a couple different mediums through that stencil. So I thought I would try using this stencil on this scrapbook page. I have a summer beachy looking picture that I wanted to put on here, but I thought it needed a little bit something else. My picture is 4 by 6, so I've cut out a mat that'll kind of go with this and pull out some pinks. And I've cut it a 1/4 inch larger, going each direction, and decided I'm going to have it about here. Because I don't want it to cover up the design of the paper, I've actually taken a knife and cut some of these leaves out, little tips there, so that I can actually tuck my mat and the photo in underneath the leaf. So you'll be able to see, if I flip it on the back, you can see where I've actually just cut those now, and there's a hole there. But on the front, this is going to just help my photo to blend into the whole page. Now, I wouldn't do this if the cutout piece, you don't want it to cover somebody's face or a vital part of your photo. But if you've got a scenic photo or the people's heads are over on this side, that works perfect to just kind of add some dimension to your page, I think. That's my style anyways. And then I want to add some flamingos down here just to make it extra cute. So I'll maybe have them about, I don't want their heads to go above my photo. So I guess I'll just have them off into this corner here. And so, yeah, maybe a little bit lower. That's why I need my photo mat there, is just to remind me of the placement where my photo goes. And I'm going to use some pixie spray on the back. You just lightly give that a spray over a box or a garbage can, or sometimes I just do it holding it into the air. And then that's going to hold it in place really nice. And I'm just going to put Distress Oxide ink through there. It doesn't need to be oxide ink. It could be any ink that you've got that you're putting. It's more you're going for the color than the type of ink. But I do like that nice pink. And I'm just going to use this stencil brush. This happens to be by Dreamweavers, but those Tim Holtz brushes work as well, or any kind of a stencil brush. So I'm just going to ink it up good and then go on to my project in a circular motion. And this stencil has the birds, the flamingos, plus it has a few lines for water lines. And I've just taken some washi tape and covered up where the lines for the water is, because I don't want watermarks on here. I just want the flamingos themselves. And this actually, I guess it's working. I'm going to try this also. I'm going to use one of these mixed media brushes. And actually, I like that better. Hopefully I'm still on camera here. Nope. Is that better? Got a little bit of another color on here. So it's kind of mixing the two as I go, but you know, it's actually the other color matches the flowers, so they're it's kind of working actually. And my plan, things don't always go as planned, but my thought was just to kind of have them faint, I guess. Just the idea of them on there. So not super vibrant. Good. Let's have a little peek. Oh yeah, that's showing up more than I even thought it would, actually. So here we go for the reveal. I'm liking that, except you can see where I got a little bit wild, and I didn't realize, but I was actually going over the stencil there, and you can see that. Maybe we can kind of fade that out. I don't think you'll notice it too much. But so there's something to be cautious of. And then if you wanted to, which I may actually do, you could take the washi tape off and change your color and put in those little water lines. I'll think about that and see if I want to do it. But here, I'm just going to tape that down and then just add my photo. And actually, I may do some ink just over the side. Over the side of my photo mat here too. See how that just makes a difference? You can see on this edge here where I've got some ink, these two edges where there isn't any, and I just like that look where it's got some ink on there. When you're doing the edges like this, or you're kind of going rough on these little foam pieces, it does tend to eat up your foam a lot quicker than if you're doing your edge. So maybe I'll show you that way too. If you're doing your edge on a mat, like we're on a craft mat here, you can start with your foam on the actual mat. And I have it tilted up. So this is kind of an exaggeration, right? I've got it at an angle and I just lower it. So the pressure is really on this side that's on the mat. And I'm just barely lowering it onto the paper. And that just gives me some control over how much ink goes on there, and that way I don't get any marks from the edge of the foam. It's just more of an even blend. And this is where this being the oxide, I just find it nice and creamy. I mean, the oxide's great for doing different techniques, but when you're just inking, blending, I just find it so creamy. It goes on so nice. I really like the oxide. So now that I've started doing the edge that way, I'll go all the way around so that it's consistent on all four sides. Sometimes I like to do a little extra in the corners so it goes in a little bit farther. And there we go. I can tape that on there. And this Sukwang tape is so strong. That's all I really need is one little strip, and it's going to go on. Then I can slip that back underneath my leaves and get it so that it's just above my flamingos. And does that look straight? Roughly, kind of. Yeah, I think we got her straight. So now I just need to add my photo, and I would put a title on here as well. And then the page is done. It just helps to add a little bit of something on there. So there's one way to use your stencil. So for this project, I'm going to do an art journal page using that same flamingo stencil. Really like those fun birds. This is the Delusions 8x8, and I have just cut out my page. Not necessary. This is just so that I can have the page sitting up at the store to give you some inspiration, or you can come in and see it in person if you'd like. But generally you can just work right into your art journal book. So my idea for this is to give them some water to sit in and just kind of do a nice relaxing beach scene. I find myself recently wanting to do a lot of kind of calming zen beach relaxy type things in my art journal. And so I want to start with basically a sky, the water, and have the flamingos there with their little long legs, little feet, dipping into something that looks like water or sand. So for quick background, sprays always go really fast. However, I would use a lighter spray than this. Probably the speckled eggs would go better. Because this is such a bright color, and I didn't really want it that bright, I'll still use it. I'll put it on, but then I'm going to sop up a lot of it so that it's not as bright. You can see this is, whoo, that's pretty wild for a sky. So wet it down some. That will help it to get moving. Plus, I'm hoping to thin out that color and make it a little bit lighter. Now I'm just making a total mess. That looks a little bit more like sky to me. And I like how that's lightening, because I just didn't like it quite. Yeah, that's lightening up a lot. So normally I would soak that color up with another project or the background for a project. But since I'm doing it on video, we'll just do this to make it a little bit quicker. And actually, maybe I need one more squirt of color now. Once you get playing with it, it's fun to just change it from bright to light till you get it where you want it. And then I'm going to take out my heat gun and give that a dry so that we can keep on going. Okay, and see how that's really curling on me? So I'm just going to heat, oh, you can see I've done something else on the back side of that. Just going to heat the back of it, and that's going to help it to lay flat again. Alrighty, that's pretty good. Doesn't look like much yet, but I'm going to put in some clouds. So for clouds, thought I would use Stormy Sky because it's got the word sky in there, so surely that would be a good sky color. You could even use the same color that you used in spray, because as you layer this, it's just going to get a little bit darker anyways. So we'll try this with some Stormy Sky. I'm going to start with my first row of clouds actually going right off of the page. And my tip would be, when you're using stencils, if you haven't used them much before, go light first, because sometimes it looks like you haven't put much on there, like it hasn't made much difference. But when you lift up your stencil, you can actually see that there is a difference there. And if you decide that it's not dark enough, you can always go back and put on another layer. but it's harder to lighten it up once you've got more on there than what you want. So that gives us one layer of clouds. What I like about the stencil is you can turn it and then you're going to have a different pattern. You can also turn it this way or flip it that way. So you can get a lot of different cloud patterns on there. So there's another row of clouds, and maybe we'll go that way. I've used this. This is a relatively new stencil, but I've used it so many times. I used it on my Easter cards with some little bunnies and characters on the ground. Give them some sky. It's just a really quick way to make skies. And actually here, I don't like the way I did that little seam, so what could we do? We'll just change that up. There, that's a little better. Or is it? Okay, next cloud. That's what I did, right? So we'll do maybe this one next. It's almost looking like a stormy sky. So every time you do your sky, it comes out a little different, which is fun. And you certainly don't need to have this many clouds in your sky, but I just really like the look of this stencil. I enjoy doing it, and so I tend to put rows and rows of these billowing clouds, and they're going to end up coming right down to where my water starts. And you know what? I'm okay with that. Probably could have done them even a little lighter. I think a better choice of a lighter blues I think would look better. But that's kind of cool. Gives you lots of rolling clouds. I love the stencil. Okay, and then my next thing would be, I think, to put my flamingos in there. And if they're off to the side here, I feel like I need something there. So let's just grab my good old text stamp. I use that so much in art journaling just to fill in some areas. I'll just do some randomly down the side there. Because it's text, but it's illegible text. So it just works for everything, I think, anyways. And it doesn't matter if it stamps good, if you get the whole thing stamped or not. There, just gives us some interest down that side of the page. And I happen to be using black archival ink because it's waterproof. So that allows me the ability to add more mediums on top of here, wet ones, and even some water. And that stamped image is not going to smear on me, which I'm happy for. So I'm going to put them down in the corner here, I think, or maybe not quite so much on the edge. Maybe they'll be about there. Okay, so I need some pixie spray on the back of there to hold it. That's just a temporary adhesive, so even though I put that on when I did my scrapbook page, I'm going to add another layer on there so it's fresh. And I'm going to put it about right. Got a piece of thread or something on there. I'll get that out. I'll put it about right here, I guess. That seems to be where they want to go. And I've left the washi tape on there where the watermarks are on the stencil so that it's just going to be the birds. And a palette knife. So this is the stencil butter. It's reasonably new from Crafter's Workshop. And I keep trying all sorts of different goopy things through my stencils. Some with glitter. I really like the glitter ones too if you're going for sparkle. But I'm really liking this stencil butter. It's super creamy, so it smears on there nice. I do need to be careful I don't work it too much because it still can work its way underneath that stencil a bit. So the best is not to be going back and forth. The more you can go one swoop, the better. And also try to stay away from going off the edge of your stencil. Might be a good idea to add a little post-it note or a piece of paper or something there, because you can see where I've gone right off the edge, and then I'll have to work on covering that up a bit. So let's see, did that work? Awesome, all except my one little line there. So let's see if I can try to get some of that off of there. Either that or got to cover it up. Okay, so I got some off, but the line is still there, so I'll have to do a little decoration or something to cover that one up. But the birds came out great, and now I am immediately going to go clean off my stencil to get that paste off of there. Okay, so on to some water, and you do want to make sure that the paste is dry before you go on to do something else with the page. I just let it air dry rather than using a heat gun. So I'm going to put some of this embossing powder. It's called C. It's a mixed media powder. So it's got a couple of colors in there, and it's a little chunkier than, quite a bit chunkier than what you would use if you were embossing like sentiments or words or something very fine detail. And this one happens to be called C. The color of it is C. So I thought this would be a great one for making it look like they're in water, but it's shallow water, maybe a little sand is showing through. So as with embossing powders, you need something to keep it onto your project long enough for it to heat. So I'm using this Emboss It Dauber, which has got a clear embossing ink in it, and I'm just gonna put it all around their feet here. Maybe not cover up the legs. And I may actually just do a section of that at a time even. We'll just go off like this. Oh, okay, maybe I did more than just a section. And then I'm going to sprinkle this powder all over, even where I don't have the Emboss It. And then I'm just going to let it come off, fall off. So it's stayed attached any place that I have put the Emboss It on there. And I want to just take a paintbrush, and here where I've got a little bit of powder is sticking to the legs or his neck, I just want to get rid of that before I heat it, because once I heat it, it's either going to blow away because it's not on the Emboss It, or it's going to emboss right over. Okay, so do I want it this high here? I don't think I want it that high. This guy's got his head down there. I don't want him drowning in the sea. Okay, we'll do something like that. And I can always add some more after. In fact, I know I'm going to, because look at this beautiful dark color in there. I want some of that on there to look like they're not just water, but it's kind of like wet, shallow water standing in the sand a little bit. So before I get my embossing gun going here, put my lid on. And then I do like to heat it up a little bit first, just let that warm up a bit. And if you overheat your paper, you can actually get some smoke going. You can scorch your paper. I've never started it burning, but I mean, I suppose that could happen too. But I have scorched my papers before. So once you see it melting, maybe you can even see that on camera. You just see it melting and just keep traveling. And here where I missed the edge of the page, I'm not too worried about it because I can go back and add some more. Oh, a little place there where it's not quite melted. There we go. So there's our first go, and I am going to let that cool for just a minute before I add on more. Normally I wouldn't always, it's not like you need to add layers, but I want a different look than what I have here right now. And I'm going to add this a little bit more on here, and that's cooled down good. So I'm going to add some more in that corner for sure. I may go up a little bit in here, and feel like I need some over there. I also want some in here. Now with an embossing pen, okay, perfect. I've got my Versamark pen here. So I want it in here, but I don't want it to go over top of his legs and feet, at least not very much. I don't want it over his head. So we'll just go around in this. I can have more control over where it's going to stick there. And that's just with a Versamark marker pen that I'm using. And now I can put my powder on there again. And this is just a white piece of printer paper that I folded in half to make a crease. And that's a great way to collect that extra powder. Okay, and then again, I'm going to take my paintbrush and take off any that's sticking to his legs too much or sticking to his head. I don't want to cover up this cute guy's little head. And then I still see some spots where I'd like to go back in with my pen, but not while I've got powder on there. I want to heat set my powder before I go back with any kind of Versamark pen again. Okay, I should follow my own tip and put the lid back on here before I get the heat gun out. And I'm also lifting this up off the surface. It allows some of the heat to go underneath the project and helps to heat it a little bit faster because we've got heat on top and a little bit going underneath as well, rather than just laying it on your surface and heating it. Okay, so the other way you can do this, now I'm just going to add a little bit more, but rather than keep shaking off the excess, I want to make sure I get some of that nice brown color going in there. And so I'm going to just put it along the top. To me, that looks like it's got some sand in it, so it's really like they're in shallow water here. Now, you saw what I did. There is, I skipped this step on purpose. There is no medium now holding the powder to my paper. So when I turn my heat gun on, it's just going to blow it all away, right, and make a mess. I'm going to have powder everywhere. But here's how you do it. I'll see if I can do this, because sometimes when you're doing it on filming or you're doing it live, things don't work out the way you want. But what my goal is to have the heat, the force of the air coming from underneath the paper, so that on top where the sand is, I have no, or where the powder, the embossing powder is, I don't have any wind, I just have the heat from underneath. So turn it on, put it underneath. And now, oh, you might even be able to see better that it's melting. So as it melts, it's going to stick. And you see there's no wind, nothing's moving. So it's not blowing it away. And now more of the big chunks are going to stay there, because before, when I would shake off any excess, the chunks are heavier and they're just falling off back into my jar. So this is one way to get those chunks to stay on your project long enough to get them melted. Once they're melted, they're going to stay there. And once it's good and melted, you can even come back on top. I really like that. I like that look where it's got that sandy look and a little more chunky. In fact, I'm going to add some more chunks. Now, what might help to hold it a little bit is if you sprinkle this on there while this is hot, so that it's got a little bit of stick to it. So I'm just going to warm that up. I'm going to sprinkle some chunks on there. And I'm still going to keep my heat gun underneath, because on top that's just going to blow away and make a mess. Now when you're going underneath, you do need to be careful that you keep moving that heat. Like, I'm not going like this back and forth fast, but I am continually moving it, because you can burn your paper without even noticing it, because you're not seeing the paper on the back side there. So really easy to scorch it without realizing. And then once it's all good and melted and stuck, I can just finish it off on the top there. And that's giving it a really cool look. It even looks glossier, like it's wet. And then it's got that sand look in there. I'm liking that. But I think you need to come in and see it in person, because it just doesn't show as well. And I feel like I just need a little bit more. Maybe I can do, oh, I know. I have this little tool. I have this little tool from Doodlebug with this little scoop. Is actually meant for glitter, but I'm going to put it on my powder and try to scoop off just enough to put in this area here. I mean, you could use tweezers, you can use whatever you have, just to be able to put those chunks. I want some of the bigger chunks, just to get them right where you want them. Doesn't mean they're going to stay there, but I'm going to try it. So I gotta let you gals know, I really like doing these Try It Tuesday videos, because it gets me experimenting, and sometimes I come up with a really good failure. Other times, experiments give you something that you like, so it's just fun to try it out and see what happens. And then I don't mind sharing with you what doesn't work, and it'll save you doing the same experiment, or let you see that, okay, you can see where I went wrong and you could try it just a little bit different so that it works out better. Like for this sky, I would not have used that original color spray. I used Mermaid Lagoon, and that's just too dark. I would have liked a much lighter sky. I think I would go with Speckled Egg, I think would be really nice. And then do a color of, now I'm fiddling with this too much because it's just kind of fun. It's relaxing to fiddle, right? Okay, stop. And now I'll get this gun warmed up a little bit again. And then go from underneath. And then once it's melting and stuck, I can finish it off by heating on the top here. And I'm happy with that for a mixed media page. I do have a little, I think that's too bright. I was thinking of putting this on here. This is from a stamp set of Lawn Fawn. They got this cute stamp set called Flamingo Together. And they've got some cute sayings. So I've stamped on here, oh, the places you'll flamingo. But I'm kind of thinking that's the wrong color. It's a little bright blue, a little bright pink. Maybe not. Maybe I could put some, maybe we could make it a little bluer. That's what I do with mixed media. Just try this, try that, see what happens. If you don't like it, it's only a tiny little piece of paper. You could always restamp it. Not sure that's much better, but it did calm it down a little bit. There, put that someplace. Maybe in the sky. Oh, the place is Yo Flamingo. And that's our projects for this Try It Tuesday. Thanks for watching.